See, this is something that I have not been very high on Sonia about ever since she was at Lyon. Here, she has an even bigger squad and even uh, probably a more talented squad than she had at Lyon. Like, this squad is stacked with talent in every damn position. But I think this is what was uh, her breaking point in Lyon as well. That she often did not have a plan B. She would rely on her star players a lot of the times to sort of bail her through.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of All About the W. My name is Kai. This is a review episode of the Champions League quarterfinal first leg that happened on Tuesday and Wednesday. Ash unfortunately couldn't be here today because she's taking a break, a much needed break, and traveling a little bit. So good for her. But don't worry because we've got you covered. Because joining me today is someone who follows women's football very closely across leagues and age groups. If you're a Twitter user who follows women's football, I'm sure some of his analysis has popped up on your feed at some point or the other. Yash, welcome to the channel. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, hopefully I can add some insights and share some valuable things on this video as well. So yeah, looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
of course. I'm sure this will be a fun chat. But you know what? Before we get started, just a reminder to all of our viewers to subscribe to the channel, to like our videos, and of course, do leave some comments because we always love hearing from you. You know that. Yash, I think we'll dive right in, shall we? Let's start
Yes.
with Real Madrid versus Arsenal, finishing 2-0 to Real Madrid. Caicedo scoring the 22nd minute and Athena Del Castillo scoring in the 83rd minute. Let's get the obvious point of discussion out of the way, which is the pitch, right? There is obviously an issue around investment in women's football, and we obviously saw that in the League Cup game at Pride Park between Chelsea and City on Saturday as well. Uh, the conditions are not always great, but there was also unfortunately an injury. Melanie Leopold's obviously kind of getting a foot stuck in, I guess, but
Yeah.
generally pointing to issues around investment and just the quality of the pitch. But more than that, in this particular game, the pitch I think played a big role in how the game played out and the outcome of the
Yeah.
game. So I have two questions. One, you are a Real Madrid fan, so does the pitch usually get this bad? Like, I'm curious, but also could you tell me how the two teams adapted to the conditions?
Yeah, so the answer to your first question is no. I think the pitch that we play on is usually in a pristine condition for most parts. It has been raining nonstop in Madrid. The locals there say this is the rainiest March that they have ever had in years. So, it's obviously not as bad as it has been made out to be. Like, the pitch was obviously in a terrible condition on match day, and probably if it would have been a league game, it would have been postponed. But since it was a Champions League game and they had to get done with the first leg, they probably went ahead with it. Uh, and I get the criticism. I myself accept the criticism of the club. This was a great occasion for the women's team to be fielded on a Santiago Bernabeu pitch. It could have been a great occasion for that. But as much as I am a Madrid fan, I also know the realities of women's football, and I know the realities of how Real Madrid themselves have approached the women's team from the get go. First of all, they arrived late to the scene. They arrived when the women's football was taking off after the 2019 World Cup. So there's always that element that uh, the women's side has not been marketed enough, and it's sort of an afterthought. And if you ask any fan who has been following the club since the Tacon days, they would agree that the management has a lot of issues, and I'm not going to hide that as a Madridista. Uh, so yeah, I mean those obvious issues do still persist, and as much as I would like for it to change as soon as possible, it's out of my hands. And yeah, I mean it's sad, but that is the ground reality of it, as much as we try to paint a brighter picture. Yeah, so speaking about the second part, I think the pitch played a big part in deciding the result. Obviously, the first goal, I don't think it would have happened without the pitch. I don't think Leah Williamson makes that mistake otherwise. So definitely, the pitch played a big role in deciding the result of the game. Uh, Coming to how the teams adapted, I think Madrid adapted well. That was a pitch where slow, patient build up, and a lot of passing wouldn't have helped because the ball wasn't moving as you would expect.
Yeah.
But Arsenal, on the other hand, I think right from the get go they got it wrong. Rene starting just two midfielders against a quartet of four of Madrid was a wrong call, and I think
Yeah.
they realized that at half time. They tried to change that, but it was already 45 minutes too late.
Yeah.
Um and I think this has been the issue with Arsenal as well. We saw it in the Liverpool game as well, where if the pitch is not allowing you to play your game, you have to come up with a plan B, and you have to sort of adapt to those conditions. You have to play to those conditions,
Yeah.
and you can make an excuse of once it's happening, but if it happens the second time, the pitch is bad, from the warm-up that the pitch is bad. You can't always be looking for the short passing options, trying to play those cute little balls in behind and trying to score the perfect goal.
Yeah.
I think Arsenal would have benefited if they would have taken some long range efforts, because the ball was wet, the goalies were struggling.
Yeah.
So it could have been a handy option, but I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm
Yeah.
happy
Of
to
course.
take a two-goal lead at Emirates. But yeah, I think Arsenal got it massively wrong, and I think
Yeah.
Rene needs to come up with a backup plan in case things don't work out as she expects to.
Yeah, I think there's a fair bit of criticism of Slager's when it comes to knockout games at this point, right? I don't think she has a particularly good history, even with Rosengard, where she was playing before. But sorry, she was coaching before. But let's look at Real Madrid, right? Like it was pretty obvious from like minute 3 or 4 that they were trying to use like Caicedo as an outball,
Yeah.
right? And I know you have your fair share of criticisms of Toril, but what did you make of Madrid setup, like Real Madrid setup this in this game?
So the setup is a pretty typical setup that we go against big teams with. Against Chelsea, we started with the same lineup, and it was the same approach. For midfielders, one of them usually Angeldal starting out wide and then helping in the middle. And usually the thing is, in these games, if we get the first goal, the tie heavily becomes in our favor, because that is the exact game state that we want to play in. We want the opposition to come at us, and we have those four midfielders then trying to build the play through and play through their press. And that is what happened against Chelsea as well. I think the first half we played against Chelsea in that first game was our
Yes.
best half this season. uh, but we ended up losing that game. In this game as well, we got a quick goal inside the first quarter, and I think that really helped us, because then we could sit back, we could allow Arsenal to come at us and then hurt them on transition, where we had a lot of strength. We had Linda Caicedo, and then later on when Atenea came on, we had Atenea as well to run onto them. And I think that is what was working on this pitch as well, less
Mhm.
passing and more carrying. And I
Yeah.
think we got that. And I think Arsenal have had those issues defending transition. The same game against Liverpool, they really struggled defending Olivia Smith. So they have had those issues since Jonas Eidevall as well. Transition defending has not been the best, and it
Yeah.
really showed in this game.
Yeah, and I think as much as Slagers prefers that Williamson Catley pairing, they have been pretty leaky at the back. But Yash, you obviously said on your podcast that this is going to be a much closer game than people
Yeah.
anticipated. And you had that lovely pass network that you tweeted. Um, and I think you had suggested that Little and Kairakuni Cross just could not handle the Real Madrid midfield. What changes did Slegers make, do you think, at halftime to cope with it?
I think the main change was they went direct. They brought on the wingers. They brought on Kelly. They brought on Caitlin Food, and the idea was that okay, this is not working. Having Russo as the 10 was not working, which was I think was not the wisest of moves. Having Blackstenius makes sense because there was space on offer in behind, and she got in behind a couple of times.
Yeah,
But Russo as a 10 doesn't offer as much as she does when playing up top. And I get that you want Blackstenius to start these games and attack the space in behind defenses. So that is fine, but I think instead of Russo, somebody else should have started. And after the whole pitch thing and everything, they realized that maybe having direct wingers would help. Mariona
yeah,
is not that. Mariona won't consistently pick the ball up and run at the fullback, and Mead is neither is Mead. So
yeah,
when they brought on Food and Kelly, they were two players who could take on their markers, who could attack the byline and who could put the cross in and try to provide that threat. So I think that is what they tried to do. Unfortunately, the game state was already in Real Madrid's favor. We were
yeah,
leading by that point, so it became difficult for them to find space because we were then sitting back and we were happy to defend in a block of 8 9 players. So it became much difficult for them.
yeah. And we know that Arsenal have struggles breaking teams down in general, and it
Yeah.
doesn't help on that pitch, I'm sure. But Yash, one last thing about this tie. How do you think the two teams will set up for the second leg? Uh, what do
So
you think is going to happen at the Emirates?
see, I hope Madrid come out the winners of the tie. That is what I hope for. In terms of how Arsenal will set up, I think maybe they'll change a little bit. They'll probably Chloe Kelly will start in that game at least. Maybe one of Russo and Blackstenius will sit out. So those are the obvious changes. If Wubbenmoy is available, I'm not sure what the status is on her. I don't think she will be, but if she is available, then she has to start. I think that pairing is their best option. Um, from a Madrid perspective, I don't think like we'll be forced into one change. Obviously, Loipols
Yes.
is not available, so maybe Irune starts, or maybe somebody like Atenea comes into the lineup. Uh, I don't think a 16-year-old Irune would be preferred at Emirates because that will be some environment there. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I mean, as much as a two-goal lead incites some confidence in me, uh, I also understand that the game is going to be played at the Emirates. They'll have their fans, and notoriously, we are not that good at defending ourselves. A lot of our defensive moments come from individual talent rather than a defensive structure. We can defend in numbers, but we cannot defend structurally. If you get what I mean. So that has been an issue. So as much as I would like to say that okay, this guy is done and dusted, I think Arsenal do still have a chance if they play
Yeah.
their cards right, and if they get an early goal in the second leg. I think that is going to turn everything upside down because we have. I mean, it could be a big thing for Madrid to make it to the semifinals, to our first Champions League semifinals. It will be a big occasion. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think with Arsenal, their hope is that they don't concede, because that's another thing, right? Because they've been leaky at the back. But yes, let's move on to Manchester City versus Chelsea, which finished 2-0 to Man
Okay.
City. Miedema scoring a brace in the 68th minute, 60th minute, and the 89th minute. Um, okay, there was some rotation from both teams after the League Cup. Some were enforced, like with Bunny Shaw and Fujino being injured, and Chelsea have a deep squad, so Sonia did make a few changes. Cushing started Fowler in the nine, and I felt like Man City generally pressed Chelsea really well through the game, and they really forced some turnovers in Chelsea's defensive third, which was, as a Chelsea fan, like, it was really troubling to watch. uh, they also moved the ball faster. That's something I felt like
Yeah.
from, say, their time under Taylor to the match yesterday. They moved the ball faster with like real impetus. They were very front footed. Um, Miedema was, of course, the goal scorer, but Caroline, I felt, was the real game changer in that match. She was causing Chelsea so much trouble. They managed to unlock Caroline somehow in the second half. So first of all, like, what did you make of the setup of both teams, and what did Man City get right?
Um, Setup wise, I feel like Chelsea did make some changes. I was a little surprised not to see JRK starting. I would have preferred her over Aggie, honestly. And I feel like individually there was a lot of how do I say it? I think individually Chelsea were off it yesterday. Sandy Baltimore had a really poor game. Her passing was really off, and there was some I don't know. There was some hesitance in the way she was passing as well. Every time she had those options to pick the right passes, she would play a sloppy one. She would play an undercooked pass a lot of the times, and the passes that she played were played very awkwardly, which I did not understand. I've never seen Sandy play that way.
Mm,
I think that was one of her worst performances since joining Chelsea, and even when I've seen her with PSG as well, I don't remember her passing being this bad. So there was that, and a lot of the threat that City also created came from that side, only where Sandy was defending. So there was that. In terms of what Man City did, I mean, Man City were like torn down to shreds. Like they have a lot of injuries now. Then Fujino and Banishaw were also out, so they had to make do with whatever they had, and I feel like they did. They did make the most of it. As you mentioned, the pressing from them was really intense, and they kept at it, which made life much difficult for Chelsea, who were quite slow in their build up. And once they were pressed, they had no options, so they went long and tried to find Myra that way, but they struggled with doing that as well. So uh, Man City did a brilliant job in actually forcing Chelsea to play the way they wanted them to. They forced them to switches, and then as soon as the ball would go wide, they would close them down pretty quickly and win the ball, or force them into their own half and turn back and keep the possession away from their own goal. So it was a brilliant execution from Man City more than anything. Those two goals are just an added advantage for them going into the next leg. And there is always an element of, when you play a side multiple times in such a short period of time, you do tend to pick up things, you do tend to learn a bit about them, some intricacies. So yeah, I mean, I think that is what happened here in most parts, and I think Man City's execution was on point. Like, to see through the first half without Miedema, and then just try to bring her in. And we all know, we have seen Miedema do this multiple times,
yeah,
over scoring in crucial moments, and that is what she did here. Just needed She got, I think, three chances and she converted two of them. So
and
it's just what big players do. But I think, despite the injuries and all, I'm not sure how fit Maika was, because when Amano came on in the second half, she also brought in a big change. So Chelsea do have enough to sort of
yeah.
still turn this around in the second leg. But yeah, I mean, not sure. Let's see.
Yeah. Speaking of Hamano, like, I want to talk about the substitution in this game. Obviously, Miedema came on, and to some extent, it felt like that was a kind of like a planned substitution of sorts. But Bompasser did bring on captain, which I did feel like Macario's passing again was really off. She passed some some of her passes were just like straight to City players in our defensive
Yeah.
third. It happened twice, and she just looked off the pace in general. So I did expect her to get hooked at halftime. I was hoping that she would get hooked at halftime, but I was surprised to see captain. So I was just wondering, what did you make of the substitutions in general and Sonia's in-game management?
Uh, See, this is something that I have not been very high on Sonia about ever since she was at Lyon. Here, she has an even bigger squad and even uh, probably a more talented squad than she had at Lyon. Like, this squad is stacked with talent in every damn position. But I think this is what was uh, her breaking point in Lyon as well. That she often did not have a plan B. She would rely on her star players a lot of the times to sort of bail her through. Yeah, so I think this is a criticism that I've had of her for a while. I'm not sure, like, I don't think many Chelsea fans would agree with me or not. I don't know, but I feel like she needs to develop that. She's a very young coach still, she's not a very experienced manager, and maybe she'll pick this up as she gets more experience, but this is something that she needs to understand. She has a few reliable players who can, and Chelsea has multiple game changers now. If when Sam Kerr comes back, you've got Sam Kerr, you've got Macario. If Guro comes back, you've got Guro as well. So Chelsea has a lot of players that can decide the game on their own.
Yeah,
And JRK has been in splendid form in the past as well. So these are all players who can decide games, but you have to have some sort of backup about, that is what Emma Hayes used to have. If something is not working, you would switch on to something else. You would adapt to the way the opposition is trying to play, change your formation, have players in different roles. That's something that Emma Hayes did very well against Barcelona last season. So these sort of situations, these sort of instances are what makes or breaks a good manager. And I think Sonia is a bit lacking in that regard at the moment. And this is some criticism that I've had of her for a while, and I think it really showed because given City's problems and given how deep Chelsea squad runs, I think there was no way that City should have come away with a
yeah,
two-goal advantage going into the second leg. A one-goal advantage is still fine, but a two-goal advantage uh, puts Chelsea in a very difficult spot,
yeah,
no matter what you say, because uh, City are capable of, because if Chelsea do decide to go at it at City in the second leg, that will leave another lots of space on transition, and that is exactly what City would want. You know,
yeah,
so
exactly. And I think it's going to be a difficult one to come back from. I feel, like you said, like a one goal advantage, or like a one goal deficit, or even like a draw. When that shot from JRK hit the bar, I was just like, oh.
yeah.
But anyway, I don't know what the approach would be from both teams. I suspect that Man City will play a little more conservatively, considering they have a two-goal advantage. I think we'll wait and see how it sort of plays out. And from a Chelsea
and
perspective, yeah,
and you guys have to face them again, right?
yeah, in the WSL. So that's another thing. So I mean, the only thing I can hope for is that we can rest a few players because we have the WSL in the bag pretty much. We can actually afford to drop all 3 points. But I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out, and their squad is pretty thin, so they will have to start a few key players anyway. But they do look a slightly renewed squad with like new manager bounce or whatever. Like at least I felt that way in the match yesterday. But yes, let's move on from that somber conversation for myself to Bayern Munich versus Lyon, which finished 2-0 to Lyon. Goals from Chewinga in the 35th minute and Melchi Dumone in the 65th minute. Gross saved a penalty at the end of the first half. It was a fairly Poor penalty from Lindsay Heaps, but it's a good save nevertheless. I was watching this game, Yash, and I was like, Bayern had a few decent spells, but they just couldn't make anything happen in the final third. The attack just kept breaking down and breaking down. They had one shot on target. It largely felt like Lyon were in control of the game, right? Which performances stood out to you in this particular one from Lyon?
So, see, I think I'll speak from a Bayern perspective. First of all, I think Bayern have stagnated by a large margin this season. I think with the squad that they built over the last two seasons, and then adding Magda and Pernil to that, they were building something that would give them immediate success, and they have got an immediate success domestically. They have become the dominant side in Germany once again. Trumping Wolfsburg, which we'll talk about, I think, next. But yeah, I think the progress that they have made this season is not enough. They have some really good players, but if you take away one or two players from their squad, they just fail to know how to play. And this season, it has all been about Pernil harder doing her thing and trying to bail them through. And we have seen that throughout the season. And everyone knows about Harder's quality. She is arguably one of the best players in women's football has ever seen in recent years. So she's a decisive player. But players like Leah Schuler, players like Clara Boole, players like Sydney Lohman, these are the players that that used to be a pillar at Bayern, right? Like Schuler used to score loads of goals. Boole used to always step up in big occasions, and not just in big occasions. Boole was a very consistent player,
Yeah,
but I
and
think
Julia Gwynn
both
as
of,
well, right? As a
yeah.
player, I like watching a lot, and she was awfully quiet yesterday.
Yeah,
Uh,
so this is the thing. These players have not had the trajectory that you would have expected them to have. Their development has slightly plateaued. And there have been emergence of other players as well. Alara has been doing quite well. They have got Tanikawa as well, who's really really good. So they have a squad that is built for success in the near future and long term, but I don't think they are maximizing it. I don't think Strauss is maximizing it. They The Bundesliga has been very inconsistent this season. As much as
yeah,
people would like to say that it has been a league where the title race is on, where teams are competing, I feel like the teams have been just very very inconsistent more than anything. So yeah, and that showed against Lyon, because even if we going into the tie as well, you would never bet on Bayern if you would have seen how they have been playing and how Lyon have been playing. So and it showed on the pitch as well. They were really poor in possession. They could not get, as you mentioned, just one shot on target as well. So they could not create much, and they haven't been able to do that against many oppositions in the league as well. They have enough talent to bail them through. They have got Harder, who is in great form, and she can bail you through multiple times. But against big oppositions in the Champions League, coming up against a side that has won the competition 8 times,
yeah,
you don't really get those opportunities. And speaking of it, about from a Lyon perspective, I think this squad is really good. First of all, like, this squad is very very talented. It's
yeah.
stacked, and now they have finally got a spell where players like Marozan is fit, players like Amel Majri are fit for an extended period of time. So you get to see them as well. But I think this squad is built in such a way that it negates the deficiencies that a Joe Montemuro system usually has.
Mm.
And I'll explain, because we have seen Montemuro in the WSL. We have seen Montemuro at Juventus. The key trait of a Montemuro side is they want to have control of the ball. They want to they want to sort of slow down the tempo to their liking, and they want to move the ball around and try to build very slow. But this Lyon side has a front three of Dumornay, Diani, and players like Chavinga, who are all three really, really good transition players and have uh, are very direct in their approach as well. So this is what like helps all of it gel together in a way that doesn't make it slow and boring at all, because
Yeah,
you can have that slow and boring passing at the back for a bit, and then once one of Chavinga or Diani picks the ball up, or even Dumorne picks the ball up, they run with it, and that is
yeah,
what adds a little bit of unpredictability to their squad, and which is perfect for them, because
yeah,
they are getting the best of both worlds under Montemuro, and that is why the results have shown that as well. They have been very
right,
dominant, and they have got the senior players fit as well. Le Sommer has been fit for an extended period. Marjan has been fit for an extended period. So it's a squad that is looking good at the moment, and it's Lyon, it's Champions League, so they
yeah.
can do things at all times. So
Yeah, they just like come alive from the dead, right, in the Champions League
yeah.
sometimes. Although they have been playing well this time. Like watching the first half, I just felt like Bayern wasn't like they weren't putting enough pressure on Lyon. Considering they were playing at home, I expected them to come out firing a little more, which they did start doing in the second half, which almost paid off, right? Clara Bull sort of misses that sitter like right after. Pernilla Harder, I think, dispossesses Renault, I think, I'm not sure, and passes it on to Bull, and she just like skies it or something. But yeah, I just want to ask you, what kind of an impactful change could Strauss possibly make in the second leg, like, according to you?
See,
Is there a shot
uh,
here for Bayern?
I personally don't think so. As much as I would like for them to make it interesting, the thing is, like, the squad needs a change.
Yeah,
I think they have run their cycle with Strauss, and this has nothing to do with Strauss being a bad manager or has made the team regress. It's usually a manager cycle. When it comes to an end, either the manager has to change their way of playing to liven things up, or tweak some bits here and there to liven things up, or you need to bring out somebody who and change things in the backroom staff. So
yeah,
I think Bayern are at that stage, because you mentioned that Bull miss, and how many times have you seen Clara Bull miss a goal at a big stage? Like,
yeah.
there's a reason she is called Big Game Bull. Like,
Mm,
she always steps up, she always scores in these moments, and I think her progress as an individual has been something that has been quite disappointing for myself as a fan as well, who's been following her for a while now. So this is the thing. I think in terms of changes, maybe in place of Caruso, you put in Alara.
mm,
Maybe because Alara has been in good touch. Alara is somebody who can provide that attacking threat as well. Uh,
right.
and you just need somebody to fire in. Like, you need your Leah Schuler to score a goal. You need your Clara Bull to step up. Like, if players are not giving you that, then at the end of the day, like, you can only do so much. If your
Yeah.
Schuler is not firing, then
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, like when Bull missed that chance, I mean, Lyon were just 1-0 up at that point, right?
yeah.
It could have really changed the momentum of the game completely. But yeah, yes, let's move on to the last fixture, which is Wolfsburg versus Barcelona, which finished 4-1 to Barcelona, an own goal from Dijkstra, then Paredes scoring in the 50th minute, Paruello in the 53rd minute, and Schürrle scoring in the 88th minute, and Ming did pull one back for Wolfsburg in the 79th minute. Uh, I mean, I don't know what to say about this game, to be honest, because, like knowing Barcelona's quality, and you did bring up Emma Hayes, game planning in a particular way, right, to face them in the last. season. But sitting deep and countering intuitively feels like the right one, right? And for about 25 minutes, Wolfsburg did manage to defend well, and they look somewhat like they could come away with a draw at the very least. But yeah, I mean, in the second half though, it just everything changed, right? Like once the first goal goes in, everything changes. But I was just curious to see, like, to get your thoughts on who was a game changer for you for Barca, especially in the second half.
Honestly, I did not think Wolfsburg Wolfsburg were good at all. Like, I have watched
Okay.
Wolfsburg a handful times this season, and they have been really really poor. Like,
Yeah.
this is a Wolfsburg that I don't recognize at all. Like, I accept a Wolfsburg that is defensively poor, I get it, but a Wolfsburg that is poor in the attack I have never seen in my life.
Yeah.
And this is a combination of both. They have been so bad in a lot of areas that they have had to switch to a back five
Mm.
at times, and they are playing Janine Minge as the center back and everything.
Yeah.
So this is not the Wolfsburg that I have sort of grown up watching, or that was my introduction to women's football. It's very sad. But yeah, I mean, at no point Barcelona weren't even trying in the
Yeah.
first half. It did not look like they were going at full force at Wolfsburg, which honestly is seemed very weird. You're playing against one of the premier sides in women's football, who has the history, who has
Yeah.
the reputation of performing in these big competitions, and Barcelona just turn up, and they are playing. The passing is slow, yet Wolfsburg aren't doing much. They have
Yeah.
fallen back into their 5-4-1 or 5-3-2 formation against the ball, and they're not doing much. And once Pio scored, it was just about time that they found a goal. And in the
Yeah.
second half, when the second half began, I went up to get some water and something to munch on, and by the time I came back, they were 3-0 down. So
Real love. Yeah.
it's honestly, like, Wolfsburg, for me, has been on a very downward trajectory for a
Yeah.
while,
And we've seen
under
a
under
lot of
Stru.
them losing a lot of players as well, right?
Yeah,
Key players. It is really unfortunate because like Barcelona did face them in the Champions League finals two seasons ago. So
yeah,
that is a team that's kind of plummeted quite a bit. But I mean, I feel like this is one of those ties that there's no coming back, right? Barcelona
yeah.
are not
Well,
going to bottle a 3 goal lead.
and we are talking about a Barcelona that did not even try or go at it at full force. Like, they could have done much better, and this could have looked a lot worse for Wolfsburg than it actually did. So
Yeah.
I think this is the one tie that is probably done for sure.
Yeah. I think this, like you said, this the future is pretty clear to us. So I don't want to like talk about how teams are going to set up in the second leg or anything. I just wanted to talk about Sydney Shuttle. I saw that you did tweet about her. Could you tell our viewers and myself? I'm actually not too familiar with her game, so could you tell us what kind of a player she is?
Yeah, so certainly I first noticed her at the under 17 Euros in 2023, and she was talented. She is a midfielder, the box to box midfielder, who she's tall. First of all, she's 178 compared, which is pretty tall in women's football terms. So she can pick the ball up. She has a very long gait, so she can cover a lot of ground very quickly. And given that she is tall and has a very good area or zone of control around her, she can win the ball back very easily. She times her challenges really well, and she has got a great shot on her. She's, despite her stature, despite her frame, has got a really close control on the ball. Is very very agile as well. This was my first impression when I saw her at 16. Barcelona signed her the following year. Uh, I never expected her to, sort of blossom the way that she has done in a team full of superstars, to carve out those opportunities, and to not just carve out those opportunities, but to make a significant impact every time she's on the pitch. Because every time she has been on the pitch in the last few games, she has either had a goal or an assist, which is a direct impact that she has. And Barcelona themselves are using her in a more advanced role. She's not being asked to sort of do a lot of defensive duties, which is great for her. It is actually helping her, sort of hone her skills in the attacking area, and which will make her a much better and a much more effective box to box player than she already is. But yeah, I mean, she's a massive talent.
Yeah.
I think, like, with the way she has integrated, and now Barcelona have her, Barcelona have Brooks, Barcelona have Vicky Lopez. So it's it's
Yeah.
not looking great for everyone else, but
Yeah, there's
kudos to
Alvarez
them, I
now.
guess. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, a lot of young
kudos to
players,
them, I
and
guess.
yeah, we'll see how long they go. But I just wanted to ask you one last thing, since you did mention like how good the Barcelona midfield is. I was just wondering, like, who do you think is going to win the Champions League this season? Like, I'm assuming it's going to be like another Barcelona versus Lyon showdown. I'm not sure,
I mean, it looks
but
likely
it
with the
looks like
way
it,
it's
right?
with the
Yeah,
way it's set up right now. It does look likely. Um, Even if City make it through the semifinal, I don't see City beating Barcelona over two
yeah,
legs.
or two legs. Yeah,
They did pull off a miracle, not a miracle, but a very well executed performance against Barcelona in the first leg, which was arguably the blueprint of beating Barcelona.
yeah,
But it's that is the thing. The margins there are so tiny that if even
yeah.
if you get something wrong, Barcelona will punish you. And the thing is, we haven't seen Barcelona at their best this season yet.
This season.
I
Yeah,
feel like they haven't hit that final gear yet, which, if you want to look at it from other teams' perspective, it is the best time to face them, because they have been leaking goals. They
mm,
haven't been the best in defense this season. Their attack, yes, they are scoring lots, but they are still at times finding their footing, finding ways to, adapt to Eva Payor. And I feel like there are stuff as well going behind the scenes that we fans don't get to know about. But something it is a little off about Barcelona this season as compared to previous ones as well. So this is an opportunity where teams can actually hurt them. Maybe if a Chelsea make it through, maybe Chelsea can get their comeuppance against Barcelona finally over a two-leg tie.
yes,
But
I
yeah,
I have settled for like a domestic whatever. Like just win the WSL. I'm done, because after last night, because Chelsea's front line is just so out of form. I've not seen Chelsea's front line so out of form in a long time. So like with Chelsea, it's usually at least under Emma Hayes, it was always that even if we concede, we just score more than you. That was
yeah.
Emma Hayes' philosophy. But this just looks bleak. So anyway, amazing. But yes, this has been a really fun chat. Thank you so much. Unless you have any last thoughts, do you?
No, I mean, nothing much. I just hope we make Real Madrid makes it to the semifinal. That is all I want at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I think we all, as a certified Arsenal hater, I also really want Real Madrid to get through. Last night, I was really struggling to cope with our performance, and my only solace was that Arsenal are in a similar place, except I feel like they have like a slight chance of actually turning it around as opposed to Chelsea, where maybe it's just like just a pessimism as a fan. um but I do feel like maybe there's some truth to it, but I also keep my fingers crossed for Real Madrid. But yes, this has been a really fun chat. But before we wrap up, do you want to tell our viewers where they can find your work on women's football?
Uh, yeah, I mean, if you are on Twitter, you can find me at O3Ozolite. If you like to read newsletters, I have a newsletter which is quite inconsistent, but I usually post whatever I want to post on Twitter. So if you follow me there, you can get most of it. And if you like to hear me ramble about Real Madrid on a weekly basis, you can subscribe to Las Blancas on YouTube as well. So yeah.
Yeah, super. So we'll definitely put the links to all of that in our show notes. But Yash, thank you so much for joining me. And to all our viewers, thank you for watching the video. Once again, a reminder to subscribe and leave some comments. Let's hope we all get what we want from the second leg of the Champions League. Ash and I will be back next Tuesday with our WSL review video as well. So we'll catch you there. Bye bye.